Heinz, as well as giving you my own presentation, which you of course saw on the schedule. And I would like to take the opportunity, while I am here to give a talk about two different topics that are not that different from each other, I would like to improvise a little bit and combine these two lectures into one single lecture with two different parts, because as you are aware that I'm talking about Monasterium.net, which is a portal that presents online archival material, specific archival material, and at the same time I'm going to talk about the Archival Europe, which is sort of a presentation platform for different materials hosted on different archival platforms. So it's some sort of a meta platform for different platforms. It sounds a little bit complicated, but I hope I can make myself clear. But to start, I will start with Monasterium because it's a more basic approach than the Archival Europe, and then I will move up to the Archival Europe. So, well, at first I will have to start my watch so I don't take too long. And of course I probably won't really talk for 1.5 hours. So maybe, I hope you can excuse me if I'm too long or too short at some point. And afterwards you can of course ask me some things that might be unclear. So okay, the first point in my presentations will be Monasterium.net. I guess most of you, as a lot of you are already known, so you already know ICARUS, you might be familiar with Monasterium. It's a portal that, it's an online database that hosts digital versions of medieval charters, which are, yeah, I don't have to tell you, which are documents from, mostly from the Middle Ages, but also from the early modern times, that focus in a very complex manner on law process, tradings of houses and vineyards and stuff like that. So they are a very important source for the everyday life in the Middle Ages and the early modern times. And at the same time, the science of dealing with charters is one of the oldest historical sciences. It started in the 17th century, if I'm not mistaken. So it had a lot of time to develop in a very complex, yeah, modern science that is used in different ways. And we at the Monasterium project and at ICARUS sought for a way how to present this complex material in a way that is accessible at one hand for users that might not be that familiar with the topic, but at the same time provide facilities to work scientifically with this material, and also to try to improve the available metadata for, yeah, scientific purposes. So Monasterium basically is an online database, just like all different kinds of databases that not only host images or metadata, but that try to combine both facets of these documents in one. We will see at the Archival Europe how that will be important to deal with working with the kind of technical data later on. But we combine this into one single virtual entity in the internet, and with that we enable access to, yeah, currently I guess it's a little bit more now, around 400, 500,000 medieval charters. I think soon we will get 130 additional charters from our colleagues from Hungary. So it's not only a nice way to look at some medieval stuff that you could probably also search on Google, but as a combination of images and technical metadata, it's also a corpus of documents that enable you to deal with new kind of questions that you couldn't really resolve in earlier times. For instance, you can make statistical analyses of textual appearances of words and stuff like that. So the big number of documents that are currently available is starting right now to enable scientists to do totally new scientific researches, and also at the same time will probably in the future enable us to even enhance the available metadata through scientific and computer algorithmic ways. We can calculate new metadata out of the existing metadata because we have so much of it. But this might be a little bit complex. And as the third basic point, apart from the browsing of the data and the working with the data, is we have at the same time a scientific way to actually enhance the metadata from a scientific point of view. So everybody can just log in, open the charter, save it, modify its content, and improve the charter, the document for everybody afterwards to use. So what I will present you a little bit more in detail is just the beginning of what we will actually be able to deliver in the next 20, 30, 40, 200, 500 years, I don't know, because the metadata will only get better from now on. So we have only laid the foundation for future research and future works. So, and basically it's free. It's not free for us because we have to pay for the servers and everything, but it's free for everybody to use it and to work with the data. So, well, the basic idea is we take this medieval or early modern document, we process it using current web technologies. You can see here XML, HTML5, JavaScript, stuff like that, and combine it with our collaborative user base and create a new virtual representation of an actual medieval charter that is something even different than the original charter, because it can have different kind of information attached to it that you wouldn't be able to get just by looking at the charter. You could have transcriptions, you could have different footnotes from different editions that outline specific facets for the database. Well, you know what I'm talking about. So we started around the year 2002 because we had the thought that this kind of material is unlike, for instance, books. You have to go directly to archives to work with these documents, because most of the time they are, also they have a unique content, they are very fragile, you cannot take them outside. So you really have to go to to the archives. And in Austria we have a specific situation that most charters are still located in different monasteries across Austria. So to make research on some specific topic, you would really have to travel a lot. So we just thought, let's make a database containing transcriptions and short abstracts of these documents to enable users to more easily work with this data without having to travel a lot. So in the beginning it was only a static, fixed database that you could access and to have a look at, basically like an online image viewer or something. But it became soon clear that the bigger these documents, this repository of documents became, the more interesting it would be to not only take the static data that already exists, like in a book for instance, but to enhance the metadata, because very often we realize that we only have the most basic level of data. For instance, for some charters we only have the year where they were published and which archives they are from. So you can also, of course, work with it, but it would be beneficial to have additional data, and to get this additional data, somebody has to create it. And as I told you before, we have currently around 400,000 documents. So it's totally out of question for us to manually work with this kind of numbers, because, as you probably know, making a scientific edition of charters that contain, I don't know, 200, 300, 400 objects already sometimes takes up to 10, 20 years. So we thought of a way to spread the work out and to make public contribution to this possible, and we decided to create an online editor. So we had a first step of this online editor, then we scrapped it because it was starting to get old and bothersome. Maybe some of you know it still. It was a Java applet that you had loaded in the browser, and most of the time it didn't work. Between 2008 and 2011, we started to redesign the whole database, and starting from 2012, we again started to redesign the whole database and the whole software. So it's still, up to this day, very much work in progress, and at the later point I will a little bit tell you how you could even contribute to the development of the platform if you would like to. So Monasterium is in a way an ongoing process of development and collaboration, not only on the scientific level but also on the technical level. So we have all sorts of different features. You can passively browse the database, you can search inside the database, you can log yourself in, make bookmarks for different documents that you find interesting, create even customized collections of documents, for instance, for a certain geographical region or a certain time frame that you would find interesting. We even have an editor where you can cut out parts of an image and create a collection of for instance, seals or different forms of letters in different charters. So it's really usable in different kinds of ways. So, yeah. These screenshots that I'm presenting you, they are probably a little bit too small, but you can look it up later on your own computer and try it out. It would be the best. So we have a combination of an image and the technical metadata, as you can see here. Here on top is just an image. You can zoom in, you can zoom out, and here you have basic description and all the different data that we have for this charter. You could, for instance, look up how the state of the seals is, whether there are damages, if they are published in certain editions, all the kind of metadata that we have. Then, of course, you can search in the database. You can refine your search using different search word terms. You can limit your search to different archives or different time frames. So these are the basic tools that are pretty much available at this kind of databases that you might be used to already. So it's best just to try it out. But one thing that is a little bit, it's not different. We can, I already told you, we can make collections of charters that are in different archives and combine them to, for instance, create a collection regarding charters of a certain monastic order or a certain country or city. For instance, our colleagues from Serbia use that to make collections of charters that originate in medieval Serbia but that are currently stored in Venice, in the Vatican, in Hungary, in Austria and stuff like that. So we have a way to combine documents from different environments in a single collection, so to speak. And in the future, this collection environment will also be open to every user. So you could create a collection that interests you for a specific topic, and you could publish it to other users. So it will, in the future, enable just the sharing of documents from a certain topic that you could give along for to students or to interested colleagues, or when you're giving a lecture or something like that. So that's the collection environment. And the most basic or most important part of Monasterium is, of course, the editor. That is also a little bit hard to describe. It's just like a document where you can fill out the form, but you can select different kind of markup. For instance, when you have a Word document, you can select bold or underlined or italic text. And in this way, you can select with the charters, for instance, when you have a name, you can mark this name and tell the database that this is actually a name, and also tell the database which modern version of this name would be. For instance, if the charter is mentioning the Emperor Charles the Great, for instance, there would probably be Carolus, Imperator Rex, or Imperator Romanum, something like that. And you could tag this Carolus and tell the database that whenever somebody enters, for instance, the name Charles, he also gets results for this Carolus. So not only, so you can create, for instance, a name or a place index for all sorts of information in the database. Well, maybe if there is a little bit time, I will just, if the browser works, I will just show it to you actually. So it's a little bit more easy to visualize. Then, as I mentioned, we have this kind of image tools. Here you would see a selection of a seal that is cut out virtually of this image, and the user can store this cutout in his database and create a collection, for instance, of different pictures of these seals. Here are, for instance, different cutouts that are grouped by a different topic, and you could also share this with the general public, so everybody could see, for instance, that there is a collection of different versions of the letter A in charters from Croatia or something. So it's a different way to get data out of these documents and combine it with contextual metadata, and to create a new context for it, because you see this kind of, for instance, the index names or the image cutouts, and in the beginning the context is the name of the collection, for instance, the letters, but you can then click on the image and get to the actual charter and have the whole context for it. So while it's more focused on specific details, it doesn't miss the whole context of the document. So it's a good way to focus on specific parts of the documents while not really losing anything of the information around it. You can store this information in the backend. You can access it. It's basically like a bookmark facility in your browser that you can take with you, so you can log in and review the interesting documents that you worked on. You can continue later on and share the data with somebody else if you want. So as you probably already noticed, is that I'm interested in the technical background, so I will tell you a little bit about it. I hope it will not be too long or cumbersome, but it's interesting in the second part of my lecture when I'm talking about the Archives Bottle Europe, because then we will have to get back to the technical details of contribution. So Monasterium is actually two parts. It's the database in the background where we have stored the names of the images, where we have stored the metadata, and we have the presentation in the front that users can use. and both are implemented using XML technologies. Mainly the data in the database is stored in XML format, which we use a specific dialect that is called CEI. It's called Charters Encoding Initiative, but we can, for instance, transform it to different formats and export it to be used at different locations. So we need to get textual metadata on the different charters. We need to transform them in the XML format, and then we have to import the XML format into a database, and then users can use it. So for an archive to contribute to the data, at first, of course, it is beneficial to take digital images. We have our own scan equipment, but everybody, if, for instance, you are part of a bigger archive, you could use your own, or could provide us with the images that you already created. But we could help you with the creation of the images. Then we would shrink them down so it would be accessible on the internet. And then we would have to create the accompanying metadata for these images, because the images themselves are already, of course, valuable, but difficult to use because you could not search for names in the images, or you cannot copy and paste the text and stuff like that. So we need to get the sometimes already existing data on charters and convert it to our format, or we need to create a new data. So it really depends on what you already have in your archive, and we will find different ways to include this in the database. For instance, here in Croatia, you have most of the data, if I'm not mistaken, in Archinet, and it's able to export it in an XML format. And then we would have to create a transformation tool that transforms one XML format that comes out of your software into the XML format that we use in Monasterium. Or for instance, in a lot of archives, you have only a possibility to export the metadata in the form of Excel sheets or an Access database, or even sometimes you even have only PDF files with content or something like that. So we also have the possibility, for instance, to create complex Excel sheets containing all this metadata and import this, or we could try to find a totally new way if your archive has a very specific way to store and export the metadata. But basically, the workflow is always the same. We try to get XML data that we then are able to import in our database. So, yeah, we can, as long as we have computer readable data, we can create the metadata to be used in Monasterium, which is, yeah, it's probably the most easy step actually, because this means that we already have computer readable data. Because sometimes it's also necessary, we did it in Austria for some time, to create totally new metadata, either from existing old editions or even by scientific work. And to get data from existing editions, we would have to take images, then we would have to create, to transform these textual images into computer readable data, then we would have to proofread these documents, and then we would have to store this data and transform it into the XML format that we need in Monasterium. So basically what we need from archives to contribute is some way of electronic readable text and images. And we can then import it in our database. Currently, it's not yet possible for archives to upload the metadata themselves, but we try in the future to create possibilities for it. Like maybe my colleague Thomas before mentioned, we would like to be something similar to YouTube for medieval charters, where every archive can just contribute by uploading their own data without going through all this communication, discussion stuff with us. But this is still in the future. Currently, we will have to take the data that we can get from you and transform it into our backend and create the web representation that we will show users. So, well, we currently have around 400,000 charters and around 500,000 or 600,000 pictures. And what this little chart shows you how the numbers transformed, and especially how much, no, it's not totally correct. The most interesting part is this part and that part. That means we have slower numbers of charters that, also from in this number around 500,000 documents, we only have around 400,000 with an abstract. We have even lower numbers with the full text, and we only have currently the number is a little bit old. It should be around 50,000 tagged person names. So there is a wide range of possibilities for improvement. Because most of the time the metadata that we get is only the text without specific markup. And in this way our editor becomes, so that the MOM editor becomes important, because as I told you before, it's very interesting for researchers to be able to search for specific persons or places or something like that without really having to rely on the full text search, because in the full text search different written versions of the same place would be written differently. You would have to guess which kind of names you would have to search for to get all the results. So it would be very good to create a better index, and for the creation of the index we need the editor, and to use the editor we need you as users and contributors to enable research projects that try to work with the textual metadata, not only the image representations and the full text. But well, on the other hand, you can quite conveniently already use it for didactic purposes, where you in older times had to have photocopies of the charters with grainy also enlargements of specific letter formats and something like that. So you can already use it to highlight certain ways to write. People can try to read and to work with the charters. For instance, in Austria we already had sometimes at the University of Vienna lectures where students tried to create transcriptions of the documents in the MOMCA editor themselves, because you can zoom into the document, you can read all the lines, that they can work collaboratively. 2 or 3 users can, also the students can start working on a document in the university, but can continue working on transcription at home. So you can probably think of all sorts of different ways how to use it for didactics. And the future, the image is a little bit cut off. We are currently starting to transform the whole software of Monasterium into an open source format, where users can, also users in this way means programmers, can even contribute to the actual coding of the software. If you're interested, you can ask me later on, or you can write me an email. It's a little bit too complicated to explain now, but basically You can use current available collaboration and programming tools to work on the Momsier editor himself. For instance, if you find a mistake where something doesn't work as expected, you can even tell us, you could tell us, but you can also try it and fix it yourself. And we hope that with this in the future we can move the software to all sorts of new perspectives that we are even don't really think about currently. So, yeah. Also, you can be part of our community, which is very, very nice. You can attend lectures like this, for instance, or drive to conferences in Prague or in Sada or in Zagreb or somewhere else. So we are very nice. So basically, that's the part on Monasterium. Probably I should stop now a little bit and give you the opportunity to ask something if you want, or you could ask me later on or in a coffee break, so it's up to you. I'm not finished yet. Well, thanks. So,